So we have here then, we're going to start with Details zur Person. Okay, so erzählen mir über ihre Familie. Also erzählen mir von ihnen und von ihrer Familie. So I think the best thing for you to do and the best way to study this is because yes, you can prepare an answer for every single question. So we see here we've got kind of 14, 15 questions just on this section. Chances are you will get 2 or 3 on this section max. You're better off just kind of prepping it in a paragraph, okay, and then going, okay, underlining bits and going, I could use this to answer this question, this to answer this question. Because if you're learning smaller and smaller parts, you know, wie heißen Sie? Ich heiße Amy. You know, you're not going to get great marks for that because you very much just kind of one-worded the answer. Always try and get full sentences and try and expand as much as you can. The more you can expand, obviously the examiner will jump in and interrupt you because they want to make sure you can actually answer questions rather than, you know, if you give a spiel for 4 minutes of the 5, you could have just learned that off. Okay, and the examiner wants to make sure, in order to give you that H1 or H2, they need to know that you can answer questions. And before we even start, I think a lot of students get really, really stressed out about being interrupted. It means you're doing well. It means they want to make sure that you've actually learned things off because they're thinking about giving you a good mark. And they get really, really stressed that they get a question that they can't answer the way they would have liked to or the way they had prepared their other answers. If you get kind of jumped with a bit of a random question, so long as you give any answer, so long as you show that you understood what the examiner was saying to you and that you could use the correct vocab or that you could give an answer to that question, that's all they're looking for. They just want to make sure that you actually know what you're saying and you haven't just learned off like lines and lines and lines of German that you don't really understand and that you kind of were maybe even given by someone else, and that's what you're then working with, okay? So we're going to have a look at wir haben ein paar Minuten. So I guess the things that we want to focus on there are we're looking for name, age, wo ich wohne, spelling name, birth date and year, siblings. Now, I have kind of spoken, you could potentially, before you would have gotten asked questions about your parents' jobs and things like that. That doesn't tend to happen so much anymore because everybody has such different circumstances. We don't tend to ask things like that. So sind Sie Okay, so this is essentially everything that we need to prep for this. Nice and handy, like I said, we're going to plan a really quick answer. We're going to look at how handy it is, and then you can use what we have a look at to basically, with the vocab in your notes, to form this for yourself. This is kind of, I would never normally fly through a section like this, but you know how to say your name. Okay, so we're going to say, ich heiße whatever. You can say, ich bin die Amy. That's kind of very colloquial. Obviously, if you're a girl, if you're a boy, we use ich bin der whoever. We're going to say ich bin however many Jahre alt. So ich bin 18. Remember that Z makes a really tss sound. Okay? So 18. Ich bin 18 Jahre alt. And then what we need to think about here is our word order. So, und ich wurde 2000 whatever geboren. There should be no D there. Ich wurde 2000 whatever geboren. In English we say I was born in. In German, we just say the year. Ich wurde 2000 whatever geboren. Ich wohne in was ein sehr schöne Stadt. Or we can say ein sehr schönes Dorf ist. And that's nice because we're getting our adjectival endings. Okay. Ich wohne in whatever, was eine sehr schöne Stadt oder eine sehr schöne Stadt, sorry. Oder ein sehr schönes Dorf ist. So I live in whatever, which is a really lovely city or a really lovely town. If you're asking for our name, mein Name wird whatever A-M-Y buchstabiert. That should be a C. And again, what's nice here is that we have our passive. So we're really just using vocab from our notes. Ich habe something, your date. And remember with the number, like, ich habe am 15. When we have that dot, we have to add en or ten to the end of our date. Okay, so ersten, zweiten, dritten, there are kind of main irregulars. Vierten, fünften, so you add your 10 to the end. So ich habe am, this day, Geburtstag. Ich habe einen Bruder, if it's only one. I'm kind of just thinking that like this is the handiest for you to prepare, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. What I want you to be aware of is when they ask you questions with worüber streiten Sie sich? So you can see a preposition in the question word. And again, if you go to question words, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but if you look at prepositions and question words, especially in your notes, you'll see kind of how we form that. So wir streiten uns über whatever, and then we have accusative. So the main things that we need to be aware of there are like things like ich wurde geboren, that we don't say in, okay? With pronunciation, we're looking 18, okay? That the Z is a really tss sound. Again, this is kind of just nice vocab. The thing is, like, ich wohne in whatever, was eine sehr schöne Stadt, ein sehr schönes Dorf ist. You have all of the vocab. This is a topic that I'm not particularly kind of worried that you won't do well on because it's basic stuff, okay? With siblings, just that if you're saying you have one brother, einen Bruder, oder drei, I don't know, zwei Brüder. So double check there in the notes that you know the correct plurals, that, you know, if you're saying you have more than two, that you use the plural version of it, that, you know, that your cases right now, if you are finding this, if you're looking at that and going, I don't know why it would be einen Bruder, I don't know why or how to tell that, go and look at the grind-on cases, okay? Have a look at that. But basically that is our very first introduction. So we've had a look at what German is for the Leavenscert, we've had a look at what exactly you are going to need to know for the exam, we've had a look at basically die mündliche Prüfung und, you know, alles was wichtig ist, everything that we need to know for the oral, and we've had our first kind of introduction into the allgemeine Fragen. So with the next session we're going to go more into detail. With this we'll look at kind of really where students pick up marks and lose marks, and we're also going to look at das Projekt. Okay, so vielen Dank und bis zum nächsten Mal.